Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Do you remember the 91st night of September? That's all I know of the song.
Yeah. You told me it was Earth, Wind, and Fire Day.
It is Earth, Wind, and Fire Day because today is the 21st of September that we're recording this, and that's the name they mentioned in their song. Their seminal, amazing #1 hit, September. Earth, Wind, and Fire is a great band.
This is before my time.
It's before both of our times. But yeah, great song. I love that song. My favorite. That was it. That's all there is to it. That's all she wrote. That's all they wrote. Sorry, it's a
I like
band.
how you're like, I got to get on the right pitch for that one. That's pretty good.
Yeah. How's it going, everybody? You are watching / listening to the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And we are in our new set today, but we finally turned it around so you can see behind us. Before we just had the Game Nights logo behind us, but this is actually, I think, my favorite part of the set.
Yeah, for sure. And we've got a roaring waterfall.
Yeah. What plane is this on?
I think it's Ravnica. I think it's the city of guilds.
The city Sans Jace. Because
I should shout out Balam Nahara. I hope I'm saying his name right. He did the animation on this cool thing behind us. So.
Balam certainly sounds like a planeswalker name as well. So thank you, Balam, for making that animation. Geoffrey does them as well, but Balam stepped in for this one. So it's exciting.
Geoffrey did the one for the last Game Nights and the one for the next Game Nights.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Today on the show, we are talking about a fun topic. We don't do these as often. Yeah, it's fun because I think it's
an annoying topic.
It's going to start a lot of conversation, and it's the most annoying cards in EDH / Commander. But before we get into it, this show brought to you by CardKingdom.com/CommandZone. Here's their awesome logo. There's their awesome hat. Make sure you go there if you want to buy any of these annoying cards that we're going to talk about today, as well as any of the new Ixalan product. It's all there. It's shipped really fast. We keep getting tweets, even though I thought it was going to end at some point, but we keep getting tweets that are like, hey, I was in X country. I just ordered this, and it came in 3 days. Amazing. That is amazing.
100% true. Card Kingdom is amazing. Also, Ultra Pro is amazing. We keep getting tweets about the Eclipse sleeves. I know they're a little bit hard to find. People often kind of complain to us that they're hard to find, but they're hard to find because they're awesome and everyone's grabbing them and gobbling them up as fast as possible.
Yep.
If you have a chance to try out the Eclipse sleeves, I would highly recommend it. Big thanks to Ultra Pro for supporting the show. And the third way that you can support this show is directly at patreon.com/commandzone. In fact, we call out one lucky patron every single episode, and this episode is dedicated to Charles Gray. Charles, you rock.
It's a sunny day because it's the 21st of September. Never was a cloudy day. Charles Gray.
I was like, how does that tie in? Gotcha.
I don't know.
Day Gray.
I would like to take a small moment to shout out all the patrons, though. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being I love reading the patron comments and the messages more than anything else because it's, Twitter, you get 1,000 people talking to you. Reddit, it's a cesspool, but a good one. But Patreon's nice. It's personalized messages. I know so many people's names now as a result, too. It's great.
I will say that I make a marked effort to respond or acknowledge every single patron comment or anything from a patron because those are our most ardent supporters. You guys are really a huge reason why we're in this space, why we have this cool studio set, and why the channel has grown so much. So thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk Commander. COMMANDER.
Good job.
I almost missed the last E.
Let's talk about the most annoying cards in EDH. There are some cards that just make us groan.
Yep.
They drive us crazy.
Well, some that drive you crazy, some make me happy. That's true. The point of this episode.
And I think that's a really good point and a disclaimer we need to make. We're going to talk about a bunch of cards that we find annoying to play against, but that doesn't mean that we think they're mean, that we think people who play them are jerks, that we think they should be banned.
We should revisit that disclaimer when you get to your #1, but sure.
Yeah, I don't think those people are mean or jerks. I don't like that card. I don't hate them, right? And I think that's an important association to make, which is that, because it gets thrown around a lot, and I just wanted to say this because somebody plays a card you don't like is not really justified for you to be not like that person.
Yeah.
Not like that card, sure, but that doesn't make them a bad person. The card's legal. They're allowed to play it. That's the format.
Now, it should not be reflective of who they are as a person.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you can not want to play against that person in that deck. You can do whatever you find fun, but that doesn't mean that, I don't like Jimmy because he plays my number one most hated card. I like Jimmy a lot. Clearly, we hang out all the time. He does play my most hated card
quite often, and different versions of it. Astute viewers will already know what this number one is.
But I do not attribute any of that to Jimmy the person. It's all in the game. Totally get it. It's all fun. That's part of what makes Magic awesome, is that you have to sort of overcome these things that you don't quote unquote like.
Yeah, and that kind of, like, wrote here is really good. That kind of rhetoric is dangerous.
Yeah.
What does rhetoric mean?
Rhetoric is just the culture of talking about it in this case, right? So the idea that a lot of people will be like, this person, he played this card, he's a jerk, or if you want to be a jerk, play this card. I don't like that rhetoric because it makes it okay to think in those terms, which I don't agree with, which is to attribute certain personality types to a person because of a card they played in this game.
Yeah. Now, I would say that cards do, in a certain way, define the person. Like,
for sure.
Your commander is always indicative of what you like to do or how you build your deck. But you shouldn't take single cards out of context, because a powerful card or a card that works really well in your deck or one that affects your meta in a very powerful way doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means you're playing to the meta sometimes.
Yeah. Or you might be playing a deck that I don't like, but that doesn't mean that it's you. It's just that's the way you like to play the game. Maybe we can't even play Magic together. It doesn't mean that you're a mean person. That's all I want to say. Okay. Enough of that. Off the soapbox. Let's talk about our most annoying cards.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. I'm going to go first. Oh, yeah. We don't have the computer here, so we're going to look them up there.
Know.
Most of these, I think we know what they do, but we might get the wording slightly off. But it's okay, whatever. Bear with us here. My number 5, we're each going to do top 5, and then we'll do some honorable mentions. My number 5 most annoying card for me is Torpor Orb.
Torpor Orb.
Torpor Orb is very simple. It just stops enter the battlefield effects from creatures.
Yep. It's a 2-drop artifact. I think enter the battlefield effects was the first thing that a lot of players go to, is what I went to when it was like, wow, this really breaks the game if you can repeatedly do enter the battlefield effects. Or we're always taught that creatures that do something when they enter the battlefield are better than ones that don't, because there's an impact on the board. You have your 1/8/7 creatures, the guys that kill someone that when they come in. So Torpor Orb stops, I would say, if I had to get a percentage, like 40% of my deck's effectiveness across the entire board.
Yeah, there's certain decks where it stops like 90% of it.
Rude.
But like even decks that aren't built around that, there's going to be a lot of enter the battlefield effects on creatures just randomly in decks that aren't concentrating on that.
I mean, who doesn't put Eternal Witness in a green deck?
Exactly.
That's like one of the best enter the battlefield abilities there is.
And another thing I don't like about Torpor Orb, or that I find annoying, is that it shuts off the way that I would get rid of it a lot of times. So like a lot of the decks are like, well, I have Reclamation Sage, or I have a 6-line, or those are my ways to deal with problematic artifacts. Well, Torpor Orb's a problematic artifact that also protects itself from that.
Yeah.
I will say that Torpor Orb probably caused me to become a better deck builder.
Right.
Because I had to start going towards Corrosion Grips and other things that, I had to think about that when I was deck building and realize, like, well, what if somebody plays a Torpor Orb type effect? There's a few other cards that do it. Hushwing Griff. Mm-hmm. There's that new one. I forget what it's called from Ixalan. It's a
dinosaur, I think.
But Torpor Orb is one of those cards for sure. When it hits the table, like, people go,
Well, it's interesting because it's not just the enter the battlefield effects on the creature. It doesn't cause abilities to trigger. So if you had a card like Warstorm Surge or,
Oh, that's a really good point.
Any of the cards that are like, when the creature enters the battlefield, X happens.
Aura Shards.
Yeah, Aura Shards, yeah. So it does actually affect a lot of stuff.
That's true. It's not just enter the battlefield. That's a really good point.
Yeah. That card is really annoying, though.
Aura Shards is another way that I would get rid of Torpor Orb, but it won't work.
Yeah.
That's really annoying.
I would have put Aura Shards on my list now that I think about it, but I use it in so many of my own decks that I feel like it would be against my own. Like, it's not annoying to play against if you play it all the time, I feel like. Because
that's interesting because
you're used to it.
Some of the cards on my list I do play. I know they're annoying to play against, but they're also so good that I'm like, well, I'm still going to play it.
Yeah, it's a good point.
We'll get to those later.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is probably the one that I think comes to a lot of players' minds. It's the one that gets made fun of a lot, actually.
It was on my honorable mentions.
Yeah, it's Rhystic Study. It's 2 in the blue. It basically is an enchantment that says every time someone casts a spell, you get to draw a card unless they pay an additional 1 generic mana for that spell. The thing about this is that we almost always are drawing cards off Rhystic Study in our play group.
Well, I don't even think the fact that they're drawing cards is what's annoying, because the Consecrated Sphinx is not as annoying.
Sure.
And it probably draws you more cards, but it's this. You gonna pay 1 for that?
You gonna pay 1 for that?
Did you pay the extra 1 for that?
Yeah.
And you're like, hold on, I'm still deciding some things. I'll tell you in a second.
It's annoying to play against because also everything is Thalia'd. Everything costs one more essentially, and you're just looking at your hand like I could have done 4 things this turn. Now I can do 2.
Or you have to calculate. Or I can do the 4 things, but they'll draw 4 cards. Is that worth it?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
I can do 3 and only draw 3. Like what amount is worth it? So the calculations just start going. The other thing that's annoying about Rhystic Study is the inevitability of this. It's like your turn.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wait, Craig, whose turn is over already, and Jimmy's already drawn his card. Craig, wait, I forgot Rhystic Study. Did you pay for it? Or 2 turns ago.
2 turns ago. Yeah.
And it's just like
it just keeps going back.
And it's fine. We almost always are like, yep, you can do that.
Yeah.
It's just slightly annoying to just break up the game all the time with those questions.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things too where people very quickly forget it's on the table for whatever reason. Even the person that plays it, which doesn't make any sense. You're the one that has this incredibly powerful ability, and then everyone's like, well, okay. Oh, wait. 3 turns happened. I was on my phone. I'm so sorry. Did everyone pay an extra 1 for their spell?
Okay, so I draw 1, 2, 6. Okay.
Yeah. The thing is, too, a lot of times it'll happen to like Craig, do you pay for 1 for it? And they look at their mana base and goes like, I do now.
Yeah.
Because I forgot about it until then. So it's kind of, definitely breaks up the game. It's kind of like Prof's weird Venom Infect Cobra. Sabertooth that I still don't understand. It's like one of those things like, well, when are you going to do it? Don't forget, but no one's reminding you. If you're playing against Rhystic Study and like Modo, it'll always have the ability to pop up and prompt you. But we don't have that in real life Magic, so it just ends up being a very wordy card. You probably say more words with this card than anything else.
And the words are always the same. Are you gonna pay 1 for that?
Or did you pay 1?
Did you pay 1?
Are you gonna pay 1? Can I draw a card? Actually, that's what I like asking. Can I draw a card?
Yeah. That's better than can I pay 1?
Yeah. Well, I think if you say can I draw a card, it's going to make the other player want to pay 1 more.
Oh,
because they understand, right? Instead of just being like, oh, it's a tax on this thing. It associates.
That is really interesting.
So maybe I should stop asking that.
Are you going to pay 1?
Are you going to pay the incredible extra amount of 1 mana, allowing you not to use your mana as efficiently as you want to this turn for that 1 spell? Is it worth it?
Oh, God. If you said that every time, then yeah.
Yeah.
Then you were a jerk just sitting. All right, number 4 for me.
Oh, gosh. This card is annoying to play against.
And it might be more particular to our play group because we have one player that plays this kind of card, and specifically this card a lot. It's Triumph of the Hordes.
Yep.
This is a sorcery that gives all of your creatures +1/+1 and infect and trample, right?
Yeah. Trample, infect, +1/+1, 2 GG.
Why does it have to give trample?
Because it's a game winner.
It's so cheap.
You're cheap.
No, I don't. I mean, it's cheap. It's 4 mana.
Oh yeah. For like
Cradle at least, like that's a game winner, but it costs 8. Like, you know, you got there. This is like very often turn 5, I just kill you.
Well, you maybe, not me. I've
died many times before turn 6 to this card.
Yeah.
If people just feel like it sometimes, I don't know. I got this card. I get off 1 player. Let's do it.
If you have a creature-based deck and you're in green, there's almost no reason I think that you shouldn't run this card if you're in like a more competitive meta of sorts.
Yeah.
Or even just like you're having trouble killing people or getting people out of the game. Just play.
I mean, it doesn't take much.
Hordes.
You play like a mana dork into like some kind of 3-drop into some kind of 4-drop, and then you play this.
There's going to be someone that's just going to die.
Yeah, there's almost always going to be somebody that just can't do anything, and they die.
And because it's on a card that temporarily applies it to your creatures, people don't see the infect coming. It's, 4 mana. People are like, oh, maybe he'll harmonize. Maybe she'll cast Hedron Archive.
Yeah, or, if they've got 3 creatures out, sure, maybe they'll hit me for 6, 7.
And there's always going to be one person, I'm pretty sure, especially with Trample, there's going to be one unlucky soul that is just going to
can't do it. Maybe they swung, but they weren't worried too much about you swinging because it was just regular damage. They don't.
Well, if it was like my Marchesa deck, I would be swinging anyway because I'm like, come, give me the damage. I don't want to be on the throne.
Yeah, true. But not that kind of damage.
Yeah, not that kind of damage.
This one's dedicated to Craig Blanchett, just in case those who didn't know.
I play in a lot of my decks too, actually.
Yeah. No, I do too.
I will say
because of Craig, of course, it's really good. That's why I was saying is like not all the cards on my list are cards I don't play. I play Triumph of the Hordes in a lot of decks, but it's annoying.
I find that it rarely works actually in the metas that I want to do it in because someone has some kind of like, okay, I'll take 8 infect and remove the one thing that's going to kill me. So
well, I mean, our meta has shifted to have early blockers to be able to interact because of Craig.
Yeah.
So it's sort of less good, but there's very often still a time when you can just kill it. Like,
yep.
I just can't remember ever having Triumph of the Hordes in my hand and ever thinking like, oh, this is no good. It's always the most calculations you're doing is like, can I kill everyone?
Chances are.
Otherwise, I'll just kill one person.
Yeah. Pretty good card.
All right, your number 4.
My number 4 is a card that you particularly love. Every time it comes out, I have to read it.
This was on my honorable mentions too.
I have to read this card like 6 times every time it comes out because I just don't understand why it's so good. And it shuts down the entire game. It's Perplexing Chimera. 4 in the blue for an enchantment creature chimera. It's a 3/3. Doesn't matter. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may exchange control of Perplexing Chimera and that spell. If you do, you may choose new targets for the spell. If the spell becomes a permanent, you control that permanent. So basically, any spell that they cast, you can say, here, you take the Perplexing Chimera, and it's as though I just cast your spell instead. So I steal the card from your hand, but you get a 3/3. And now you have the ability to steal the next spell if you are so inclined. There's almost no spell in EDH I wouldn't exchange for a permanent. Like, if it was like a Rampant Growth, maybe. But like...
It really... First of all, you can abuse it, obviously, with Rune.
Any flicker effects.
Any kind of flicker effects. Because you flicker it once they have it, and then most of those effects say return it to owner's control at the next end step. Well, you're the owner of that card.
Yeah.
So it comes back onto your side of the table.
Well, what you do is when the Perplexing Chimera triggers on the stack... Well, actually, no. You have to flicker it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if you cast the flicker spell and they choose a different target for it...
Yeah, that's a good
So you
point.
have to do while the Perplexing Chimera
That's okay.
is, like,
You still
about
get
to
the Perplexing
transition.
Chimera if they do that.
Yeah.
So you get it either way, right?
Oh,
if
you're
they steal
right.
your flicker spell.
Oh, gosh, you're so right.
So it's not that bad.
Unless they have a really good flicker target.
I have also found that this card is pretty good even if you can't flicker it because it's just really hard to play against it.
Yeah.
You're sitting there looking at all your cards, and the EDH decks aren't built with a bunch of cards that you don't care if your opponent gets them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's like, oh, I'm going to use a removal spell on it. It's like, no, actually, they could have just use that removal spell on something else. You get the Chimera, though.
And then now the whole game's weird because you can steal other people's spells, and give them the Chimera. And usually if you have the Perplexing Chimera in your deck, you do have ways eventually to like flicker it or whatever. But plus nobody can play the commander. Oh man, I love this card. It's so great. But it's a head scratcher.
So annoying. Because every time it comes out, you're just sitting there and you look at your entire hand and go like, I don't want anyone to have any of these. I'm just going to keep passing the turn until someone finds a way to kill it.
I'm just going to do nothing.
Like, board wipes are really the real effective way against a card like that.
Yeah, because if you steal the board wipe with the Chimera, you're like,
Still
that's
happens.
my board wipe.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Still wipe.
Just
still
do it for the flavor.
Yeah. All right. My number 3 is Gaddock Teeg.
This is a Alex Kessler special.
This is and again, I play this in quite a few decks. If you're a creature-based deck, you probably want this in there if you can.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's green-white for a legendary creature 2/2. It says non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be cast.
Like Triumph of the Hordes?
Like Triumph of the Hordes. And then it also says non-creature spells with X in their mana cost can't be cast.
So he's a non-creature spell hater.
Yeah, he's a hate bear because he's a 2/2 for 2.
Yeah.
But he turns off, a very high percentage of your opponent's decks.
Yeah.
He turns off a lot of the stuff that would get rid of him.
Uh-huh. And they're all non-creature spells, too. Ugh.
So good.
I don't think the X thing comes up as much, but the fact that you can play him on 2 if he's your commander and build your deck to have low CMC spells.
And a lot of creatures.
Yeah. He's a very good commander, I think.
He's a finisher in a lot of creature decks, too, because, you're always getting to that board state where you're just on the precipice of, like, if they Wrath, then I'm in huge trouble because I have to extend a certain amount to be able to maybe win.
Yeah.
And so what can often happen is you get to that point, then you play Gaddock Teeg as sort of your, like, okay, now you can't Wrath because almost all Wraths cost more than 4. There's a couple that don't. Toxic Deluge, one of the reasons it's really good, stuff like that. But in general, you just put a lockdown, no Wraths. And now you're not 100% safe, but you're very often very safe with your big board. So it it locks down the board so no Wraths can happen. And that very often can seal the victory in those type of decks where it's like, I just really need to untap with all this stuff and then I can win. Yeah. So Gaddock Teeg. But again, if you're in a game and you're not playing the Gaddock Teeg, I don't know how many times it's hit the table and I've just looked at my hand and I have like 7-8 cards. And I only have 2 that I can even play, A lot of decks are just like, they're not going to get rid of Gaddock Teeg, so I'm in that situation for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That card's annoying.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's in the deck I'm playing soon.
I mean, it's gonna be great in that deck.
Yeah. So my number 3 is a card this is actually one of the few cards that I play in a few different decks.
You play it in a lot of decks. Yeah.
I hate this card though when it's played against me.
Oh, well, certain decks can't beat this card.
Yeah. Certain decks just fold to it, especially Voltron decks. It is Grave Pact / Dictate of Erebos. Now, both of these are very similar. The only difference is that Grave Pact has slightly different wording, but they're both enchantments and different casting costs, and Dictate has flash. They're both enchantments, and they basically say whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. I think Dictate says each opponent sacrifices a creature, so it's slightly different if you're doing like two-headed giant or something.
Oh, good point.
But I invest a lot in my creatures. I think Craig taught me to be a creature-based player. That was like the main thing that I started doing when I first, because Kiki-Jiki was my first commander. You know, creatures were always something that I found myself attached to. So when someone plays Grave Pact or Dictate of Erebos, it is just high time for all of your creatures to die. And even this actually happened in game nights.
Yeah, with the Harvester of Souls or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just like this weird domino ping-pong.
It was Butcher of Malakir that was killing everyone.
Yeah, and you're right, Butcher of Malakir. And it was just this weird ping-pong ball thing, which happens with Grave Pact a lot, where it's like something dies, and because that dies, that kills something of yours, which makes everybody sacrifice a creature, and then you get this weird domino effect where sort of everything just goes. And usually the deck playing Dictate and Grave Pact wants their stuff to die, or it's good for their stuff to die, so it's just like doubly,
It's just hard to attack them as well. It's hard to block because, you know, if they have a sack outlet out, then you just, like, sometimes I'll just start playing garbage creatures on top of my good ones because I know that I need that good creature to survive and hope that more than 3 creatures don't die by the time it gets back to my turn or whatever.
Yeah, which they almost always have a plan for that. Usually when those cards come out, you're losing all your creatures.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad. Like if you're a Narset or one of these.
Oh yeah,
Rafik,
exactly.
Like it's just very hard to beat that card. I like it. I play that in a lot of decks too.
I do.
So far, I play a lot of these cards. I don't play Torpor Orb much.
Or Triumph.
Okay, I'd play Triumph, but not a lot. Yeah.
All right. You definitely play this next one.
To number 2, which is I've stated I think before, and I believe it's true that I've never successfully resolved this card and not won. I'm pretty sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because no, I don't think so. I remember the one time we did it in Limited. Oh boy. In a game of Conspiracy. That was.
Wait, you did it?
You did it too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did it once, but I remember there was a better one where you did it. And you basically killed 4 of us, and I think we were all at pretty healthy life totals. Like, the card is Expropriate.
It's absurd.
Yeah, so it's
potentially the best vote card ever made.
I think by far it is. I mean, it's 9 mana, so you have to get to the point to cast it, right? It's 7 blue, and.
But hey, when you do it, you win the game.
I mean, it doesn't say win the game, and it feels like the analogs to other cards are there, and those cards, like Blatant Thievery, don't always win you the game, and yet somehow this wins you the game. So it is 7 blue for a sorcery. It has Council's Dilemma. That just means it's a vote card, but it's from Conspiracy 2. So it says
like Table's Dilemma.
Right, there are 2 kinds of vote cards. One is everybody votes and whatever wins happens. The other one, and this is from Conspiracy 2, and this is how this works, everybody's vote sort of tallies on each category, and then that each thing happens that many times.
Yeah.
So you either vote, you get an extra turn, that the player who casts Expropriate gets an extra turn, or gain control of one of my permanents. So the person who plays Expropriate always
votes for
extra turn, because they already have control of their permanents, so they don't need to gain control of one of their permanents.
Yeah.
So you always get 1 extra turn, and then it goes to the next player. Let's say it's Megan, and she either gives me one of her permanents, and I get to choose which permanent. It's not like she gets to choose, or an extra turn. Then it goes to Maria. She makes the same choice. Then it goes to Jimmy. He makes the same choice. So what happens is you either Blatant Thievery plus extra turn, which means take 1 thing from everybody, their best thing, and then get an extra turn to then use the best things that you just took.
Yep.
Or you get more than 1 extra turn.
Yep.
By the way, Time Stretch costs 10 mana, gives you 2 extra turns. So if you get 1 extra turn, you're already getting a good rate on 2 extra turns. Plus, the other 2 people still give you stuff. It's just really good.
And most times, I think people do make the mistake of giving people an extra turn. You should almost always give them a permanent.
Never give an extra turn. Give them a permanent every time. Now, you may lose
some good stuff,
and you may lose that game, but you will always lose if they get 2 extra turns. There's no way you win a game where they've got 9 mana available to them, they cast Expropriate, and you just gave them 2 extra turns.
Yeah, because they're already getting a permanent, probably, and 2 extra turns. Even the 1 extra turn can sometimes be enough, but I think people are usually very precious about their permanents. And the first few times I was like, you're not taking my best card. And I was like, oh, wait, but I just lost the game. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this card is broken.
Yeah, 5 mana is about the average price for an extra turn in EDH. With time warp, not time stretch. And
time stretch is already like a card that could go on this list. Just getting 2 extra turns for 1 card is so good.
Very, very powerful.
All right, you're number 2.
Who
does number 2 work for?
Who does number 2 work for? This is a card that also we played against recently on game night, and boy, it really made things hard to live.
It's similar to Rhystic Study in some ways, too.
Yeah, I guess.
In that you have to keep reminding people that it's there?
Yeah. It's called Blind Obedience. 1 and a white for an enchantment. It has Extort on it, so it says whenever you cast a spell, you can pay either white or black hybrid mana. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. So in a 4-player game, you're draining everyone for 1, and you gain 3. The big thing is that it says artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Artifacts and creatures. If you go back to the game nights where Mel played this in the Commander 2017 precons, I think I had to play a giant mana rock.
Yeah, I'd play Dreamstone
Hedron. Tapped.
It's the
and then pass the
worst
turn.
thing ever.
Like if that card wasn't there, I'd been able to play 3 more cards off of that Dreamstone Hedron. But because of that, and it's also like, hey, you need to play a blocker this turn. It's like, nah, you're not going to. It's going to come in tapped. Hey, you want to have an activated ability or something on a haste creature. It's just not going to happen.
Plus the Extort.
And they get to Extort.
The Extort is actually sneaky good because for 1 mana, they're gaining 3 life and dealing 1 damage to everybody. The 1 damage is not as much as the 3 life because if they cast 2 spells, that's
6 point life total. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they cast 2 spells, a lot of times gain 6 life. That's just every turn, and you're slowed down, so it's not like you can get to them fast.
Yeah, you're really slowed down.
Yeah,
I've seen people unload their hands on the board, being like, "All right, past turn, next turn though."
Yeah,
and then it just never comes back around, or someone board wipes or does something. So it puts everyone in a really precarious situation as well as just being super powerful.
It also does that Rhystic Study thing where you're like, oh yeah, that's supposed to be tapped. Yeah. But then those 2 things should be tapped.
That's what really annoys me is because you just look at your board and you look at your mana rocks and they are just useless. Ugh. And you can play it as early as turn 2. And it's only your opponents. Ugh.
On to our number 1s.
Your number 1.
This is a surprise to no one, right? Like, I thought about even disallowing it because it was like, well, this is going to be like, there's
Soul Rig on the top 10 artifacts.
Yeah, there's no suspense here. Like, what my number 1 is. But in case you don't, it's Blood Moon.
Yay.
And the gap between Blood Moon and all the other +9 cards is ginormous. Blood Moon I have been annoyed by since it came out. Since the Dark, right? Is that when it came out?
Yeah, the Dark, yeah.
Since the Dark. I have disliked it because I always like playing dual lands and fancy lands. And I always like playing a lot of colors.
Not even just fancy lands, just regular non-basic lands, which are in every single EDH deck, unless they're 2-color or 1-color, essentially. Even then, there's a ton.
It's brutal. So in case you don't know, Blood Moon is an enchantment. It says non-basic lands are mountains.
Darn right they are.
They're mountains.
Beautiful mountains.
So
let's take a trip to those mountains.
There's a whole lot of reasons that I dislike this card.
Maybe they're covered in snow.
One is it's like 1 card with a pretty unique effect. And a lot of people will point to Ruinations and other sort of land hate cards, but those aren't perpetual effects. So like Ruination comes out, blows away my lands. It's not really that different than Armageddon. It's a little better because it can be one-sided, but at the same time, next turn I can play a land. I can start to do stuff. Blood Moon locks you a lot of times into I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Because, maybe I'm in a 5-color or 4-color deck, and in those, which I usually am playing, and in those, I might only have 2 or 3 basic lands in the entire deck, if that, sometimes 0, and it turns them to red. Red is the color that can't get rid of enchantments.
Yeah, red is also the least played color in Commander, I think. So even if you did, around...
Even my 5-color decks maybe have 6 red cards.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Not like
and they're probably mixed with other colors, too.
And it's like Vandal Blast. Like, that doesn't do anything against Blood Moon. I need specifically Chaos Warp to get rid of the Blood Moon.
Or Scour from Existence, which is a colorless spell.
Yeah, which I'm not putting in a ton of decks because... That's the other thing, because Blood Moon is just 1 card. Like, if there was a bunch of cards that did exactly what Blood Moon does, and I know there's like Magus of the Moon and there's a couple other ones, but getting rid of a creature's, like, if there are a bunch of enchantments that sort of, I don't know, copied that effect, then I could build my decks because I know I'm going to run into it more. But because it's really hit and miss, like, Jimmy, you play it, but you play it in like 2 of your decks. I'm not going to build my deck to...
Yeah, your deck has to be built to make sure it doesn't get screwed over by it, too.
Yeah, I mean, like... You're going to play one of your 12 decks. If you play one of the 2 with Blood Moon, you have to draw Blood Moon and play it in that game, which that percentage is so low, I'm just not going to put 6 cards into my deck just to beat that card.
Yeah.
So it's just like when it happens, it feels like, well, I'm I'm locked out of the game. I can't do anything, but I'm still not going to do anything different in the future because just percentage-wise, it's not worth it.
Well, that's why I play Magus of the Moon, so the percentage is higher.
At least that's a creature. Like, it's a lot easier to get rid of the creature, especially with red mana. The fact that it's an enchantment and it turned your stuff to red specifically, which is the color that cannot deal with enchantments, is really... Also, color identity in Commander really hurts you. Yeah. Because otherwise, you could put Chaos Warp into your decks that didn't have red just as a way to get out of that situation, but you can't because you're not allowed to have red unless your commander has red in it. All right, I hate this card.
The Blood Moon rises again, Josh.
But again, I still like Jimmy. He's still pretty cool. He's all right.
I guess the best decks equipped to handle this, you just have to play less non-basics.
Yeah, and you have to sort of make sure that you fetch, a non-basic like forest or
don't always
white.
Go grab a dual land or whatever.
Yeah, so that you can play your Croson Grips or your Reclamation Sage or does Reclamation Sage does artifacts and enchantments, right?
Yeah, yes. Artifacts.
Some of those only do artifacts.
Yes.
Or so on and so forth.
Oftentimes that is how it gets taken care of, which is just someone has a Rec Sage or an Acidic Slime, and because they're green, they've been playing Rampant Growths and stuff, so they have them.
Nev's Disc is another card I actually put in a lot of my 5-color decks just as like some way to get out of Blood Moon if it happens to happen, and it's good enough when Blood Moon's not played that it's still a good card. So, still, don't like it.
Don't like it one bit. Have you noticed a lot of these are enchantments?
Yeah, because enchantments are the hardest thing to get rid of,
and they stick around.
Yeah, anything that happens once can't be that annoying.
Yeah,
because it's just like
artifacts and enchantments.
Anything where you're like, wait, I got to remember that every turn.
No thanks.
All right, what's your number one?
My number one is a card that you introduced me to. It was one of the least favorite games of Magic I probably ever played afterwards. That card is Humility. Humility is an enchantment, again, 2 white, and it just says... All creatures lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 1/1.
Listen, this is really simple, although the card tends to people have a lot of questions once in play.
Yeah.
But
can this happen?
No. The answer is always no. The answer is no. It's not. It's a 1/1 with no abilities. There's no point in time where it's not a 1/1 with no abilities.
Comes in, it's just a 1/1 for sometimes 6.
Yep.
It's a 1/1 for 5 mana. The problem with this is that it is. Again, I play creature-based decks. I have a lot of enter the battlefield effects. This is it combines Torpor Orb, what it does, and it also adds on the whole. Your creatures are just tiny, so you're paying. You're not even getting a good body off it. Like sometimes you're getting you're paying for a 5 mana 5/5 or whatever. This time you're just always paying for a 1/1 no matter what.
Yeah, at least with Torpor Orb, and Torpor Orb's bad, don't get me wrong, but there's times where you can be like, well, I'm just going to attack you with my stuff, right?
Yeah.
Hey, there's still 3/3s and 4/4s. You can't just... But Humility even kind of stops that.
Yeah, and then it makes everything trade with everything else because they're all 1/1s.
Yeah, it's a pretty brutal card.
Yeah.
I would suggest putting it in all your decks if you have, say... If you're around 8 creatures or less.
Yeah.
And you're in white, you should probably have Humility in there.
And then you combine this with Ether Flash.
That's why that game.
Which is an enchantment that does 2 damage to a creature when it enters the battlefield. I think that's what it is. So basically, anytime you play the card, they just died immediately.
That's really what put that game into the realm of super annoying.
Yeah.
And you notice I didn't really play that deck after that because that's sort of what it did, and it wasn't that fun because it was 4 hours.
Yeah, well, everyone was just as soon as we can get rid of this Humility, it's fine. It's no, now we gotta get rid of this Ether Flash too. Oh my gosh, this game is gonna last forever. So Humility definitely at the top of my list. It just shuts down too many of my decks, and I like my creatures. I have very few Mizzix-esque decks.
Right,
and even then Mizzix gets destroyed by Humility, but at least you have powerful spells.
And you have the ability to maybe capsize the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You have other ways of dealing with it. But yeah, Humility, what a card.
What a card. Okay, so those are our top 5, our personal most annoying cards in EDH, but we have a few honorable mentions, stuff that... I don't know if mine are even the next on my list, but they were ones that I was considering.
Yeah, they're up there.
My top honorable mention is Winter Orb.
Players.
This is a classic. Players can only untap 1 land.
As long as Winter Orb is untapped.
Oh, yeah, that's actually something that comes up from time to time. So if you can tap your own Winter Orb, you can tap it on the end step before your turn, and then all your stuff will untap.
Including the Winter Orb.
Yeah, and then everybody else. So that's a really good, another reason why Fate Stitcher is awesome.
Yeah, it locks stuff down.
Yeah. But when somebody else plays Winter Orb, you're just going at and a lot of times I've noticed, and listen, I'm not calling these people mean or a jerk or anything because sometimes their deck is set up to take advantage, they got Planeswalkers or whatever.
Yeah.
They play Winter Orb and they're not doing the tap it thing. They're just literally fine with everybody else themselves not being able to cast stuff because they're well, Then I tick up all my planeswalkers. I have 2 or whatever. And I'm just getting value while everybody else.
Oh
is
yeah,
slowly...
it's really good in planeswalker decks.
Yeah, but it's slow, so it's just like, okay, untap 1 land, go. Untap 1 land, go. Untap 1 land, go. And then somebody goes, okay, I'm gonna tick up Jace. I'm gonna tick up blah blah blah. I'm gonna tick up this. Okay, go.
Yeah.
Untap 1 land. Untap 1 land. Untap 1 land. Okay. I'm gonna
or they're
tick up
playing
Jace.
cards like Treachery.
Yeah.
So you just get their mana back. The thing that's really interesting about this card is that Fate Stitcher can tap it.
Yeah.
And untap it. So if you do have a tap ability, that's what you can kind of get someone. Be like, haha, I tap your thing back down. Or I untap your thing because you tapped it. But it doesn't really matter.
I told that story about how I was playing with some guys and somebody played Winter Orb, but I was playing my Tim deck. So I actually had control of it. I could tap and untap it. And so I was just making it so everybody except the Winter Orb player got to untap their stuff, which was pretty brutal. So
that is brutal.
But I felt totally fine because they played Winter Orb, so they gotta deal with the consequences.
They do have to deal with it. Yeah. My top honorable mention is Cyclonic Rift, because if you know
this is a good one.
If you know that someone has it and they have 7 mana, it's almost like not playing into a board wipe, but even more intense because you don't even want to play your mana rocks. You don't want to play anything really until you can find a way to make them bust it and use it. But it's such a huge board wipe and it's such a blowout because it's like, oh, use your Nev's disc. It's like, okay, it's going to blow everything up. But in this case, it's like, oh, this is a one-sided board clean.
Yeah, it's not their stuff. The fact that it's one-sided and that it's instant. I think those are the 2 things.
Yeah.
If it was sorcery speed, no, it'd still be awesome because it doesn't hit your own stuff. But it would be much less good. And the game doesn't give us a good way to deal with mass bounce. So,
right.
There's protection, like give your stuff indestructible. There's face reward stuff to get it back out once it's gone to the graveyard. There's nothing. They need to design a card that says, it's like 1 in a white or 1 in a hybrid white green that says, it's an instant and says, if a spell or effect an opponent controls
would return
a permanent, any number of permanents to your hand this turn, put those back on the battlefield. Something that punishes mass bounce because there's nothing right now that protects you from it.
Yeah, other than like giving it, counterspell. You can't even give yourself hexproof because it's just such a powerful card. And knowing that someone has it, because usually you'll see them tutor it to the top with a mystical tutor, or even if like I would say 80% of the time when I demonic tutor in a deck that has Cyclonic Rift, I get Cyclonic Rift. Yeah, it's that or Toxic Deluge, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're already ahead and you're getting Crater Hoof or some game-winning card, so you're either winning or stopping somebody else from winning.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is that like, haha, I did everything right. I prepared for everything except I cannot stop a Cyclonic Rift overloaded.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
7 mana for that effect is just absurd.
It's instant. It's instant.
Yeah, it's an instant.
It's brutal.
I hate it.
Yeah. But it is very good, and I put it on every deck that has blue, and you should too.
You should too.
My next one is Iona, Shield of Emeria. Iona is, I'm not even going to say her casting cost. She's a huge angel, but what she really says is when you cast her, by the way, it's when you cast her, right?
As she enters the battlefield.
Okay. Oh, sorry. As she enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
You choose a color, and then spells of that color cannot be cast.
Yeah, your opponents can't cast spells.
Sorry,
of the
your
color.
opponents.
So you
still can. You could choose white.
Yeah. And be A-okay. Yeah, you definitely don't like this card at all.
It's kind of Blood Moon-esque. It can turn off your ability to get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about it.
Against a monocolor deck, it is just lights out.
Yeah. If they're playing mono black and you name black, they literally can't do anything. Again, Scour from Existence, which if these cards are popping up a lot in your meta, that's kind of your answer, Scour from Existence and Nev's Disc. But they don't pop up enough to build your decks to beat them, like Blood Moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just kind of take your lumps when they happen. I remember I was playing in an LGS and some guy came up and he was like, "Are you Josh Lee Kwai from Game Nights?"
Oh, I remember. Yeah. This is
and I was like, he's like, "Can I play Commander?" Sure. He managed to turn 5 Iona me.
And you were playing?
I was playing mono green, Titania, and I was like, okay, I mean, you win.
I remember walking by the table, looking at it and go, ooh.
I mean, you got me.
That's Commander for
you.
you.
I'm playing green. I could do literally mono green. Like, what's your answer to Iona?
Yeah.
You can't counter it. And once it's out, you can't cast any spells. So it's literally like, do you have Scour from Existence in your deck? And did you happen to draw it?
You're just playing draw go.
Yeah.
It's a 9-mana 7/7 flyer. So that of course, 9 mana, like Expropriate status, Insurrection. We talked about this in the Ramos. Yeah, we talked about this on the Ramos episode, but 9 mana is like end the game cards.
I would like it better if it just said, destroy target player or whatever because sometimes you still got to sit there and wait for them to kill you.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think those people are jerks or anything. I'm just like, yeah.
True.
You got my monocolored. Like, I'm done. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Can I go?
Can't. All right. My another honorable mention is a card that I play in every single deck of mine. It's Vedalken Orrery.
This, I think when we started this show, I don't even think, isn't it on our top 10 artifacts back in, like, that was like our...
I really hope so.
One of our first 10 episodes.
Please don't look, viewers.
I don't think it was.
We could check right now. But,
okay.
But keep talking about this card while I check.
So Vedalken Orrery is a 4-mana artifact, and it says you can cast all your spells at flash speed. So basically all your spells have are instant speed now. And Jimmy and I both have sort of slowly come around over the course of doing the show over the last 3 years in that Vedalken Orrery literally goes in every single deck. Mm-hmm. It's as ubiquitous as Sol Ring. In fact, if I were to say, I think I have Vedalken Orrery in more decks than I have Sensei's Divining Top in. Wow. It's just so good. And there are points in the game where it's bad, where it's hard to just pay 4 mana and do nothing. But if you can ever get it out, you're in such a great position because you basically control where you sit at the table. And it gives virtual haste to everything. It just has... We didn't, did we?
It's not on there.
So that just shows, right? So what episode number was this?
This was episode number 13. It was also when we broke down your 5-color Nekasar deck.
Okay, so we're talking... what's the date on it?
The date is September 30th, 2014. Wow!
So
we
almost
passed 3 years on this.
So that's exactly 3 years from this episode, right?
Yeah, because it's coming out on the
20... I don't know, 8th or something?
Yeah, it's going to be on 26th. So that's almost 3 years to the date, 4 days.
So 3 years ago, we did our top 10 artifacts episode. We each listed our top 10 artifacts, and Vedalken Orrery is on neither of our lists.
Wow.
And now I would say it's like number 2 or 3 probably for both of us.
Yeah. I mean,
we outlawed Sol Ring on that list too, by the way.
Yeah. The reason also it's really annoying is that it gives every deck blue.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, or it gives every deck flash.
Yeah.
And the fact that like a lot of decks just don't have, a lot of colors don't have access to that ability, and it turns every sorcery into an instant. It turns every creature, every artifact, every enchantment. It's absurdly ridiculous. Powerful. It's just you may cast spells as though they had flash. It's a 4-drop, and this is a card that's also slowly on the rise price-wise. So I don't know.
Probably partially because we always talk about it.
I mean, maybe. The thing is, too, like it is innocuous when you don't think about it, about the fact that it does work in every deck, and it makes every deck so much better. Giving cards flash is absurd.
There are certain cards where they just shouldn't have flash because of what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Is just like broken when you could do it whenever you want.
Yeah, pretty intense. Yeah, so Vedalken Orrery, very annoying to play against because now everyone just goes draw go. And you don't know what to play around anymore. You don't know, that person tapped out so I can do X. It's the turn order changes, essentially.
Well, and the end step before their turn becomes you can't prepare for anything. So they can do anything right then and then follow it up with a play that they wouldn't have.
Even a board wipe at instant speed. Yep. Like Wrath of God at instant speed is incredible.
1,000,000 times better because you Wrath of God at instant speed at the end step before your turn, and now you're the first one to repopulate the board rather than the last one. Yeah, I know a lot of competitive EDH players are probably shaking their head because I know they don't tend to like Vedalken Orrery because when you're comboing off, you usually can't just pay 4 mana and do nothing.
Right. It's also a one-on-one format in competitive EDH, so it's a lot worse, I think.
Well, CEDH is often one-on-one, but not always. Yeah. But yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, Vedalken. I agree with you. Now, there's one card neither of us put on our list, but I do want to talk about here. Mm-hmm. We mentioned it. It's Sensei's Divining Top.
Divine away.
I would say most people would probably put this in their top 5. We hear from online anyway, a lot of people complaining about it because I think it's similar to the Rhystic Study problem. Like, do you want to pay 1 for that? You want to pay 1 for that? People are... I don't know if this actually happens a lot because I've never really seen it happen much, but I guess it does because people complain about it. Or
I hear it all the time, yeah.
They hear about other people doing it and they just imagine that that's a problem with it, which is that, people go, okay, I top. They look at the top 3 cards. They think about it. You got to sit there and wait till they do it. They reorder it. Then they do it. And then they can do it again as different things happen. But that just hasn't been something that we've seen happen very much. And maybe it's just our play group.
I think it's our play group. I think it's a little overhyped about how bad it is because I think if you listen to our episode, which is how to play faster, you would just, I play top. I pass the turn to Josh. It's going to go Josh, Megan, Maria, back to me. I just go, Maria, on your end step, I'm going to top. If anything changes in between then,
I reserve the right to change my decision.
But like I'm just doing this so that and like
I'm going to do it now because 90% of the time nothing will happen.
It also gives you a lot more time to do it as well. That's the thing I think annoys people about, which is someone tops and everyone's sitting there waiting for it. So now you have 3 turn cycles to do it. And yeah, sure, having a little extra time is quote unquote cheating a little bit. But I usually top and I look at it, I'm like, all right. And like by the time Josh is halfway through his turn, I figured it out. I just put them back on top. And if something drastic changes where I need to make sure that, oh, shoot, you know what? Because Maria did something on her end step or on her turn that I need to switch the order of these, I'll do it. But it's not like I wasn't going to make that decision anyway. So I'm not really cheating. I'm just giving myself, and I'm just
trying to save time.
I'm trying to save time for the rest of the table as opposed to giving myself more time to decide, because it's really not that difficult. It's not like you're scrying stuff to the bottom. You're just reorganizing the top 3. I can understand if it's like, okay, I need to tap the thing to draw a card to do all this stuff, then there's a little more complication with top there. But otherwise, it's like Mary's Guide. You're just reorganizing the top 3 cards of your library.
It's really like how you deal with the instant speed tutors a lot of time, like Enlightened Tutor or Vampiric Tutor, which is, I hope people do this. We usually are like, okay, you go. I'm passing the turn. I'm going to Vampiric Tutor on the end step before my turn. I'm just going to go get that card now and put it on top. And if somebody does in the meantime changes that, then I'll reserve the
deck
right.
Or does whatever. Yeah,
yeah, I'll reserve the right to, change it because I really did it on the end step before my turn. I'm just saving time. And, our play group and whenever we played at GPs or other LGSs, people have always been like, yeah, do that. Save us time. So anyway, but top, I can see how it could be annoying in theory. I just don't see that very often.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. That was like 15 cards that we think are super annoying in EDH.
And yet we still play them anyway.
We still play them anyway. Well, I hope you don't play Humility anymore.
No, I don't think I have it in any active decks.
Sweet.
I'm not saying that it won't come in at some point.
Well, yeah, I can't make that promise for
There's that
Blood
new
Moon,
sort of almost humility from E3 Revolt. What's that card called? But it only targets one player, but it sort of humiliates.
Yeah.
But it costs like a bunch more mana.
It's not Youth Revolt. It's from Hour of Devastation.
Hour of Devastation.
Yeah. It's like an 8 mana target player. All their creatures lose their abilities, become 1/1s.
It's way worse. I'm just saying I could have 2 humilities in my deck, Timmy. So be careful with those blood moons.
You could double up on someone. Well, I have 2 blood moons, Magus of the Moon. Let's go.
I have 0 of your most number 1 card.
I have 0 of humility in my decks. So.
It's unrelated.
And I have 2 blood moons in 2 decks.
Let me look. Okay, so you've got Rhystic Study. I have it in every deck.
Yep, me too.
Perplexing Chimera. I have it in 1 deck. Grave Pact Dictate. I have it in 1 or 2 decks.
Yep.
Blind Obedience 1 or 2 decks. Humility 0.
Okay. Torpor Orb 0. Expropriate 1 or 2, I think, maybe 2. Gaddock Teeg 0. Triumph of the Hordes maybe 2. Blood Moon. They're on all my decks, even if they don't run red. No, I'd say Blood Moon's in 2 decks. So you're right. Okay. I have more of your...
You know what? It seems pretty fair.
Yeah.
It's not like any of us is like stacking up on the
I'll trade you. I'll take Blood Moon out of all of my decks if you take all of your top 5 out of all of your decks. Yeah.
No.
All of my... all
Absolutely
of them.
not.
Okay, I'll just do it just for Grave Pact, Blind Obedience, and Humility. My top 3.
What do you mean?
As in, you have to take Grave Pact, Direct Dictate of Erebos, Blind Obedience, and Humility out of all your decks, and I'll take Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon out of all mine.
I'll think about it.
Ooh.
I only have a couple decks with Dictate and Grave Pact, and Blind Obedience has enough analogs that I could play something else that does a similar thing.
Wow.
Hey, man.
I'm going to play the Wish card and get Blood Moon out of my sideboard. But I gotcha.
I didn't have it in my deck.
Yeah, exactly.
Letter of the law.
Didn't think you saw that one coming, huh?
I would have mad respect for that, actually.
If I played like Glittering Wish or whatever.
You got me.
Oh, man. Those Wish cards, I still don't understand them. I'm like, I can't play with a sideboard in EDH. It's too much.
All right. Time for To the Listeners. What are your most annoying cards in EDH to play against? And do you also simultaneously play those cards like we do?
I would also like to know if your experience with top is different than one that we described. If the reason that you dislike it is for something entirely different, I would be very interested to know. So
seems that a lot of people dislike that card. All right, if you want to buy any of these awesome cards
and not play it against us,
besides Blood Moon, don't buy that one because the world does not need more Blood Moons.
Just got reprinted though. Just saying.
I would highly suggest Expropriate as a card you probably want to go pick up if you want to win more games. That card seems good.
Yeah. Vedalken Orrery, if you can find it anywhere that's not... The price is definitely, I think, doubled now in the past like 6 or 7 months. So if you can find some stores up. Or... actually, you could just find one place for all these cards.
It's cardkingdom.com/command-zone. If you use that affiliate link, you are helping us keep the lights on, helping us do cool things like build this set and bring in awesome guests for game nights and for this podcast. We really do appreciate you using that affiliate link. And our other amazing sponsor is Ultra Pro.
Whoop.
So while you're at Card Kingdom, you can buy some sweet Eclipse sleeves. Some of those heavy,
if they're in stock.
Yeah, they're not always.
Pay attention, yeah.
And anywhere you buy Ultra Pro product is going to be great for helping to support the Command Zone and game nights. Obviously, if you go to Card Kingdom and use the affiliate link, that sort of doubles your double dipping, and that's great, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Eclipse sleeves, heavy metal dice, those gravity dice.
Gravity dice is sweet.
Yeah, I get a lot of compliments whenever I pull those out. Cassius Marsh is a big fan of the gravity dice. When, in fact, I had to give him one of mine because he was so in love with it. I was like, you can have it. Yeah, so.
I will say this, too, that Card Kingdom, because I was just talking about price hikes and stuff, they 100% honor the price they put on their page. And there have been a lot of shady sellers on different websites that when, like, someone buys, for instance, like Hazaret, the Fervent, was a card that spiked after.
It spiked during the Pro Tour. During the Pro Tour. In the middle of it, yeah.
So oftentimes you'll see these stories where people say, I bought 4 copies off of this seller on this website, and then they came back to me and canceled my order because the price had, doubled or tripled, and that seller didn't want to lose those profits. Card Kingdom will never, ever do that. I actually bought a ton of Teferi's Protection, and they were at a much lower price than they are now, and there was not a single... I didn't even think about the fact that they would cancel.
You didn't have to worry about it. Because Card Kingdom would never do it. Man, you did that? You are so smart. I did not do that.
Yeah.
They are expensive now.
It's a great card.
This is a sweet card. All right. Now it's time for the end step, where we talk about something cool outside the world of Magic.
Did you write this one down, or is this from an old end step?
No, I wrote this one down.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been talking about this book.
I know. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
Did you read it?
I did. I read it.
Really fascinating.
So you and Andrew were both talking about it the other day, and, I'm a book reader, so I wrote it down, and then I went on this trip, and I had some time, so I downloaded it, and I read it. It's called Sapiens. It's by Yuval Noah. It is...
You want to understand the world better?
Yeah, it's a look at sort of the history of humanity, but it's not like a historical book. It's more like anthropology, right? So it's more about the movements of people and the changes in thought processes and
why does gossip dominate our conversations? Like,
really
a lot
interesting
of
looks
things.
At one of the things I found the most fascinating about the book was the idea of imagined reality and how humans are the only animal that sort of creates imaginary things. And by imaginary things, and it was really interesting in the book, he brings up like corporate entities and nations, and that was one of my favorite parts of the entire book. Or the Command Zone. Like the Command Zone is and by that I mean the podcast, or game nights maybe, to be less confusing. Game nights is an imagined thing, right? Because it is not what is game nights? Is it Jimmy? No.
Nope.
Is it Josh? No. Is it this room?
No.
No. What is it? Like, what would it take to go away?
Magic.
Yeah, and yet it exists. We all agree that it's a thing that exists. But what constitutes what it is? It's something we created from nothing. It's an imagined thing. And if you could say that for, Apple, you could say that for, the United States of America. Really, really fascinating book. I just loved it.
Yeah. I will say, if you are someone that believes in creationism, you will not like this book.
Listen,
because it's very much like, here's where humans came from.
It definitely leans into the evolutionary thing, and I know that's not for everybody. But at the same time, there is leeway from a lot of those people that there are ways to sort of believe in both, depending on the timeline that you believe in.
I think the basic, the more important stuff that they talk about, which is like humans and our propensity to gossip, is like, like the ideas of how humanity works, the anthropological aspects of it are what make it really fascinating. In the same way that after watching The Wire, I felt like I understood why systems and police work and how government works a little better. After reading something like Sapiens, I actually listened to it on audiobook. I was like, wow, a lot of this makes a lot more sense about. And also things are more confusing now.
Yeah, it's so true because
what really does hold a country together? Like some documents? A border patrol? Like
it's like a whole bunch of things, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of the book too, which is like it's not so simple as saying it's this thing. It's a framework of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And super interesting. Highly recommended. Again, it's called Sapiens by Yuval Noah. It was, I think, recommended by not a lot of people. Like I think Obama was a person that recommended it at one point. So
I think actually Bill Gates and Steve Jobs both are people that have read it and recommended it as well.
Yeah, and I think it was like it's like on the top 10 most read books on Amazon or whatever. So
pretty smart people.
Anyway, highly highly recommend. Something else I would highly recommend is our sister podcast, The Masters of Modern. Alex Kessler and Ben Bateman, they talk about the modern format and all things competitive Magic. They also occasionally talk about Commander now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You can find them right next to us at collective.company or on Twitter at the MMcast.
And, of course, special thanks to our editor for the show, Terry Robertson, who's making his way to Los Angeles very soon. Very excited to have him in-house and working, hopefully, on a lot more stuff to pump out more awesome products for you guys. He makes the video version that you're watching right now or you're listening to and the audio version.
He will make this one from L.A. He's been working from Indiana
that's right.
for about almost a year now.
Yeah.
But this one, he's making from L.A.
Yeah. And so you can watch that at youtube.com/The Command Zone Podcast. And also, of course, Geoffrey Palmer. Big thanks for doing all of the living card animations on those videos, as well as the Game Nights backgrounds. And, of course, Balam Najera for this background behind us right now, which is really, really awesome. We hope to change it up. By the way, if you have suggestions of what backgrounds we should use, we'll 100% take those into account and be like, cool. Someone wanted to see Ixalan. Someone wanted to see Euphorexia.
Yeah. If you have a cool image you think would work for an animation for the background, absolutely. You can email that to us, commandzonecast@gmail.com, or just put it in the comments or tweet at us. Facebook works as well. So,
yeah.
All right.
That's it.
That's all.
Stay annoyed. Don't stop
be annoyed at
Magic.
the card. Don't be annoyed at the person. That's all I'm going to say. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time.
Peace. I almost did Shaka, and then
I threw the Shaka at someone, and they didn't know what it was.
They didn't know it?
Yeah, and it was funny because the person was like, they were a vendor at like a giveaway thing, and they were doing like Hawaiian lifestyle stuff. I was like, yo, Shaka brah, and they're like, hi. It's like, you can't.
If you're gonna do the Hawaiian thing, you gotta know what
this is. Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
I didn't even know what it was until you told me, and I was like, oh sweet, now I get the inside info on this, and I was like trying to talk to the person, but they didn't get it. So
it's kind of a Hawaiian saying, like, when in doubt, throw up the Shaka.
Really? Nice. The person I think was just from the Bay Area, so I was like, okay, you're just mimicking the lifestyle then, aren't you?
You're forgiven. Hawaii's cool.
Hawaii is cool. They'll chill. They'll chill about it.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.